Now, I came to the UK as a child, as I've mentioned before, and with my family, we're Jamaican, and we assumed we were speaking English, but we assumed it was bad English. But within the family, there wasn't, as far as I felt, a judgment about speaking that way. It was the way we spoke, and my reflections are possibly my parents, because they were latecomers to the UK. My father came when he was 42, so he was established, he knew who he was as a person, and my mother was 10 years younger. And so they didn't, as far as I know, do anything to change how they spoke. So they would have spoken Jamaican on different levels, and we did that within the home. But there was an expectation that we would acclimatize and accommodate and speak English properly. So there was no sort of, as far as when we were growing up, there wasn't a concept of this was another language, but internally I felt it was another language because I had to learn it, whatever it was. And the thing that really all of us, as children used to do would be to mimic people. And it was the rhythm of English that we thought was really funny, because it was like, would you like a cup of tea? And it was, yes, please. And you had to, in Jamaica, it was like, yes, no, it was, everything in Jamaica was very abrupt. And then you were seen to be rude if you didn't raise your voice and lilt alongside. If you spoke in a very flat voice and said yes or no, that was wrong. And so you quickly learned to sort of put some different musicality to your voice. And that was for us learning English. Now, along the way, we mimicked. And so whoever you were with, you changed your English depending. So playing out in the streets, it was Cockney. I read a lot. So you saw proper English written down, but often I didn't know how to pronounce it. So you had to do a lot of listening. So picture skew, I remember thinking, oh, that's a word, picture skew, and then remembered, oh my gosh, they say picturesque, so little by little you'd sort of learn the language that way. And I think actually what Norman was saying, really, because what we experienced was two languages. Well, languages at home that we didn't recognize as another language, but that was home, how we spoke, and we were comfortable speaking that way at home. And also in school, because I went to school which was about at least 60% Black and Caribbean. And again, a lot of people in my secondary school in particular spoke languages from St. Lucia and St. Kitts and other islands, which was Francophone, and we had no idea. And so they would go to their corners and cuss you and, do all sorts of things using those different languages. And we had no idea, because everyone, for them, it was bad talking. There was no multilingualism attached to it. And we, as children, we played with that language. What I actually think, and I think the thing that Norman really says is hold that language. And so to me, that was my mother tongue, literally, that's how my mother spoke. And it's quite interesting because my mother has passed, but I can't remember her voice. But when I see myself doing Jamaican, I think, oh my gosh, that reminds me of my mother. And it is a rhythm of the language, really, that stays with us, or stays with me. And back to the hierarchy, one of my friends, they come because we're different classes, and so we were sort of lower middle class, possibly. My parents were tradespeople, and this other family, they were same number, like 8 children, and musical family and Jamaicans. And the mother was very posh, and I said to her one day, does your mother ever speak Jamaican at home? And she said, oh yes. And she said one day she was talking and really calling her, and her name was Lisa, and it was Lisa, 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 and she wasn't replying. And then somebody knocked on the door when she was in the middle of calling Lisa, and then suddenly she said, oh, I didn't know my name was Lisu, because her mother suddenly changed her name from the Lisa to Lisu. And it was just interesting, that whole thing of adapting what we thought was rhythm and language was a different pronunciation. Along the way, I have learned, and as Joseph has shown, the constructions of Jamaica, the grammatical systems of Jamaica, all the things that actually makes Jamaica a composite language that I had a sense of because I learnt languages. And I thought, no, this is another language. And people used to laugh at me because it's bad talking, Audrey, get over it, don't do it. But I actually felt this is my home language. It's precious to me and I'm holding it. And in a way, I'm going to say, I mean, we've not had the differences of different linguistic roots and so on in Jamaica to make it, well, as we say, back to the progression of language, it's a progressive language on lots of levels, and even more progressive now that what we're doing with it in Jamaica. But actually, I think that the learning I've had to take from it really is to recognize that it's a heart language and not to destroy that as part of, because the last talk I did, I realized the damage that had been done to me by not being able to pass that on to my daughter. And it's reminded me, and this is where I sort of get tearful, because all the time Africans or Jamaicans are told you're talking gibberish. We've been, we've had our original languages taken from us because it was gibberish. We've been stopped from moving into our cultures because we weren't able to use our languages. And now we are re-embracing our culture in the way that we've grown together as a community. And that's what really makes a language powerful for us. So thank you.